The sun was dying and nobody knew why. Commander Daewon stood at the observation deck of the Seoul Space Command Center, watching the pale yellow star that had once burned bright and warm. Now it looked sick, like a dim light bulb running out of power. The temperature on Earth had dropped 3 degrees in the last year alone. Crops were failing. Ocean currents were slowing. Ice was spreading from both poles at a rate that terrified every scientist on the planet. 12 years. That was all humanity had left. Daewon pressed his hand against the cold glass. He was 52 years old, a veteran of the space program, and he had seen many impossible things in his career. But watching his world die slowly was the worst of them all. Behind him, technicians worked at their stations, their faces hollow and tired. Everyone knew the truth now. The governments had tried to hide it at first, but you cannot hide a dying son. His daughter, Hana, walked into the observation deck carrying a tablet. She was 28, brilliant, and one of the lead engineers on the Arc project. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Nobody slept much anymore. "Father, we have a problem," she said quietly. Daewon turned away from the window. "Another one?" Hana nodded and held up her tablet. "The navigation computers on Arc 3 and Arc 5, they're receiving signals." "Signals from where?" "That's the problem. The signals are coming from deep space, from coordinates that don't match any known star system." She swiped through screens of data. "The quantum processors started picking them up 3 weeks ago. I thought it was interference at first, but the pattern is too consistent, too deliberate." Daewon took the tablet and studied the readings. His military training had taught him to recognize patterns, and this was definitely a pattern. The signal repeated every 47 minutes, always the same sequence. "Have you decoded it?" "Partially. It appears to be coordinates, a location in space between star systems, just empty void according to our charts. Could it be a malfunction?" Hana shook her head. "I checked everything twice. The computers are working perfectly. Something out there is calling to us." Daewon handed back the tablet. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow freeze. 5 billion people had already died in the past 2 years. Riots, starvation, disease. The Arc fleet was humanity's only chance. 7 massive generation ships designed to carry 50,000 people into deep space. The plan was to reach Proxima Centauri, establish a colony, and hope that humanity could survive long enough to rebuild. But now there was this signal, this impossible message from the dark. "Show this to no one," Daewon said. "Not yet. I need to think." Hana looked worried. "Father, if there's something out there, something intelligent, shouldn't we investigate?" "Or avoid it completely," Daewon replied. "We don't know what's sending that signal. It could be a trap. It could also be salvation." Daewon looked at his daughter. She had always been braver than him, more willing to take risks. Maybe that was what humanity needed now. Not caution, but courage. 3 days later, the Arc fleet stood ready for launch. 7 enormous ships, each one 5 kilometers long, floating in high orbit above the dying planet. Daewon walked through the corridors of Arc 1, watching families board with their small bags of possessions. Each person had been selected carefully. Scientists, engineers, doctors, farmers, teachers, the best of humanity, also the luckiest because billions more had wanted to come. Children ran past him, laughing despite everything. They were too young to fully understand what was happening. That was probably a blessing. Captain Tae-sung met him near the main bridge. Tae-sung was 45, a former naval officer with a square jaw and steady eyes. He would command Arc 4. "All ships report ready," Tae-sung said. "We launch in 6 hours." "Good," Daewon replied. "Walk with me." They moved through the ship together, 2 old friends who had known each other since military academy. Daewon trusted Tae-sung more than almost anyone. "I need to tell you something," Daewon said quietly. "My daughter found something. A signal from deep space, coordinates to a location that shouldn't exist." Tae-sung stopped walking. "What kind of signal?" "We don't know, but it's intelligent, deliberate. Something is calling to us. And you want to investigate. I want to consider it. Our plan is to spend decades traveling to Proxima Centauri. But these coordinates are closer. Much closer. If there's something there, something that could help us." Tae-sung frowned. "Or something that could destroy us. Commander, we have 50,000 lives aboard these ships. We can't risk them on a mystery. We're already risking them on hope," Daewon said. "Hope that Proxima Centauri has a habitable planet. Hope that our ships will survive the journey. Hope that we can build a new civilization from nothing. At least this signal is real. Someone or something sent it. Or something, Taesung emphasized. Not someone. We don't know what's out there. Daewon nodded slowly. I know, but I've made my decision. We follow the coordinates. We see what's waiting for us. Taesung looked like he wanted to argue, but he was a military man. He understood orders. I hope you're right, Commander. So do I. 6 hours later, the Ark fleet launched. 7 ships rising from Earth's orbit, their fusion engines burning blue-white against the darkness. Behind them, the planet continued to freeze. Emergency broadcasts still played on every frequency, but there was nothing left to say. The people who remained would die within the decade. Daewon sat in the command chair of Ark 1, watching Earth shrink on the view screens. Hana stood beside him, monitoring the navigation systems. Around them, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. All ships have cleared Earth's gravity well, Hana reported. We're free. The word felt strange. They were refugees now, homeless wanderers in the void. Set course for the coordinates, Daewon ordered. Course set. Estimated arrival time, 17 months. 17 months to discover what was calling them. 17 months to hope they had made the right choice. The fleet aligned itself and jumped to faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched and blurred. Behind them, Earth disappeared into the distance. Ahead, in the empty dark between solar systems, something waited. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. In her quarters, Hana couldn't sleep. She kept reviewing the signal data, trying to understand what it meant. The pattern was complex but not random. It reminded her of a beacon, the kind ships use to guide each other through dangerous space. But who had built this beacon, and why? She pulled up the astronomical data for the target coordinates. According to every database, there should be nothing there, just empty space light years from the nearest star. Yet the signal persisted, growing stronger as they traveled closer. Hana closed her eyes and tried to rest. Tomorrow she would continue her analysis. Tomorrow she would try to solve the mystery. She didn't know that the mystery had already solved itself. That the moment they launched toward those coordinates, humanity's fate had been sealed. The trap had been set millions of years ago, and like every species before them, humans had walked right into it. The Ark fleet sailed on through the dark, following the light that promised salvation but delivered something far stranger. 17 months passed in the cold darkness of space. The Ark fleet traveled through the void between stars, following coordinates that led to nothing on any map. Life aboard the ships fell into a rhythm. People worked, ate, slept, and tried not to think about the home they had lost. Children attended school in zero gravity. Engineers maintained the fusion reactors. Farmers tended the hydroponic gardens that would keep everyone alive for the decades-long journey ahead. Dr. Jiwon made her rounds through the medical bay of Ark 1. She was 39 years old, the chief medical officer for the entire fleet. Her job was to keep 50,000 people healthy in an environment humans were never designed to live in. Already she was seeing problems: bone density loss, muscle atrophy, depression and anxiety spreading through the population like a disease. She checked on a young woman named Soyeon who was 7 months pregnant. Soyeon's husband Minho sat beside the medical bed holding her hand. They were both 24, newly married when the world ended. How is the baby? Minho asked nervously. Jiwon studied the ultrasound readings. Growing well. Strong heartbeat. But I need to be honest with you both. This baby will be born in zero gravity. We don't know how that will affect development. Soyeon touched her swollen belly. Will our child be normal? I hope so, Jiwon said. But we're in unknown territory here. She left them and continued her rounds, feeling the weight of responsibility. Every person on these ships depended on her to keep them alive. But how could she protect them from the effects of deep space itself? That afternoon, alarms began blaring throughout Ark 1. Jiwon ran to the bridge where Daewon and Hana were staring at the main view screen. Captain Taesung's face appeared on the communications panel calling from Ark 4. All ships confirm, Taesung said tensely. We're seeing it too. Jiwon looked at the view screen and felt her breath catch in her throat. Floating in the empty void ahead of them was a structure. Not a natural formation, not an asteroid or comet, a structure. It was massive, easily 20 kilometers across, shaped like a ring with spokes connecting to a central hub. Lights flickered across its surface, dim but steady. Metal that should have been dead and cold for millions of years still held power. That's impossible, Hana whispered. There's nothing out here. No stars, no planets, nothing to provide power or resources. But the station was real. The sensors confirmed it. Something had built this place in the emptiest part of space, and it was still functioning. Daewon leaned forward in his command chair. Scan it, I want to know everything. The bridge crew worked frantically. Data streamed across their screens. The structure was old, impossibly old. The hull materials predated anything in human records. The design was unlike any architecture Earth had ever produced. Commander, one of the technicians said shakily, I'm picking up breathable atmosphere inside. Temperature at 20 degrees. And there's artificial gravity. How? Ji-won asked. Nothing can generate gravity except mass or rotation. That station isn't spinning. I don't know, Doctor, but the readings are clear. Daewon made his decision quickly. Prepare a shuttle. I want an exploration team aboard that station. Dr. Ji-won, you'll lead it? Ji-won blinked. Me? Commander, I'm a doctor, not an explorer. Exactly. If there's any biological hazard, you're the one who can identify it. Take a security team and 2 engineers. Find out what that place is. 2 hours later, Ji-won floated through the docking port of the alien station. Her team consisted of 4 security officers, 2 engineers named Nari and Hyun, and herself. They wore environment suits, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness inside. The station's corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were smooth, made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light. Their footsteps echoed in the empty silence. This place is giving me nightmares, Nari muttered. She was 26, one of the youngest engineers on the fleet. Her hands shook slightly as she scanned the walls with her equipment. Stay focused, Ji-won said, though she felt the same creeping fear. They moved deeper into the station, following corridors that seemed to lead toward the central hub. Along the way, they found rooms. Empty rooms with fixtures that might have been furniture or equipment. Everything was sized wrong, designed for bodies that were not human. Then they found the first chamber. It was circular, 50 meters across, with a high domed ceiling. The walls were lined with transparent pods, hundreds of them, stacked in rows that reached up into the darkness. Each pod contained something. Ji-won approached the nearest one slowly. Inside, floating in clear fluid, was a creature. It had 6 limbs covered in scales with a head that was mostly mouth. Dead. Preserved. Like a specimen in a museum. What is this? Hyun whispered. Ji-won moved to the next pod. A different creature. This one had tentacles and multiple eyes, also dead. Also preserved. She walked along the wall, counting. 20 different species in this chamber alone. All alien. All extinct. There are more chambers, one of the security officers called out. Dozens of them. Ji-won felt sick. This wasn't a station. It was a tomb. A collection of dead civilizations preserved and displayed like insects pinned to a board. Nari's scanner beeped suddenly. I'm picking up an active computer system. Central hub 3 levels down. They descended through the station, finding more chambers, more species. Ji-won counted at least 40 different alien races, all dead, all carefully stored. What kind of beings would do this, and why? The central hub was a massive spherical room with a single pedestal in the center. Above it, holographic displays flickered to life as they entered. Images and symbols that made no sense at first. Then the station's systems recognized them as intelligent beings. The holograms changed, showing planets. Dozens of planets, each one highlighted. Then the images showed spaceships, different designs, all heading toward the same location. This station. It's showing us something, Ji-won said. A pattern, more images. Species arriving at the station. Species entering. Species being studied. Species being preserved. Nari worked frantically at the pedestal, her engineering skills allowing her to interface with the alien computer. I'm getting translations. The system is adapting to our language. Text appeared in the hologram. Rough but readable. Preservation protocol active. Species, collection. 47 civilizations archived. Purpose, salvation of dying races. Ji-won read the words with growing horror. This place collects extinct species. More text appeared. All civilizations followed coordinates. All sought escape from dying worlds. All arrived seeking hope. Just like us, Hyun said quietly. We followed coordinates. From a dying world, The hologram shifted again, showing new images. A massive empire of machines, vast and powerful, spanning galaxies. These were the preservers, the beings who built this station. They traveled through space, finding civilizations on the edge of extinction, sending them coordinates, gathering them here. Choice offered to new arrivals. Option 1. Preservation, biological samples stored, species archived for eternity. Option 2. Continuation, coordinates provided to habitable world. Survival uncertain. Jiwan felt her blood run cold. It's giving us a choice. Be stored here as museum pieces or take our chances somewhere else. But why? Nari asked. What do these preservers gain? The hologram showed more images. Planets receiving the species who chose option 2. And on each planet something terrible waiting. The images were fragmented, incomplete, but the message was clear. The worlds offered by the preservers were not empty. They were testing grounds. We need to get back to the fleet, Jiwan said urgently. Commander Daewon needs to see this. As they turned to leave, the hologram displayed one final message. Scanning new species. Humanity cataloged, awaiting decision. The lights in the chamber brightened. Somewhere deep in the station, ancient machinery hummed to life. The preserver system had activated. It was studying the human ships, learning everything about them, adding humanity to its vast collection of dying races. Jiwan ran for the docking port, her team following close behind. They had to warn the fleet. They had to tell them the truth. The coordinates they followed weren't salvation. They were an invitation to join the largest graveyard in the galaxy. And now that they had arrived, the preservers would not let them leave without making a choice. The council chamber aboard Arc 1 was filled with angry voices. Daewon sat at the head of the table, watching the fleet's leaders argue. Captain Taesung stood with his arms crossed, his face hard. Dr. Jiwan presented her findings on the main screen, images of the preserved alien species rotating slowly. The other captains joined via video link from their respective ships, all of them talking at once. We should leave immediately, Taesung said firmly. This place is a trap. Every instinct tells me we need to run. A younger captain named Nari disagreed. She commanded Arc 6 and was only 31 years old. Run to where? We barely have enough fuel to reach Proxima Centauri. Our ships are already showing stress fractures. The fusion reactors won't last another decade at this rate. She's right, Hana added from her station. I've been running diagnostics. Arc 3 has critical damage to its hull. Arc 7's water recycling system is failing. We built these ships in a hurry and they're falling apart. Daewon raised his hand for silence. The arguing stopped. Dr. Jiwan, tell us exactly what you found. Jiwan stood and faced the council. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed fear. The station is a collection point built by beings called the Preservers. They've been doing this for millions of years. They find dying civilizations, send them coordinates, and offer them a choice. What choice? Asked one of the other captains. Be preserved as biological samples or receive coordinates to a habitable world. Jiwan paused. But the worlds they offer are not safe. The station's records show that species who accept the coordinates face trials, tests. The images weren't clear, but it looked like some kind of challenge. A challenge we can refuse, Taesung said. We leave. We take our chances with Proxima Centauri. Our chances are 0, Nari countered. The ships won't make it. You've seen the reports. We're dying out here, just slower than we died on Earth. Daewon looked at his daughter. Hana, your honest assessment. Can we reach Proxima Centauri? Hana hesitated. She didn't want to say it, but she had to tell the truth. No, not all 7 ships. Maybe 2 or 3 could make it if we cannibalize the others for parts. But we'd lose 30,000 people. Silence fell over the chamber. There's more, Jiwan continued. The children born in space. I've been monitoring them closely. They're developing differently. Faster brain development, enhanced problem-solving skills, but also decreased emotional response. They're adapting to space, but they're becoming less human in the process. Daewon thought of Minho and Soyeon's baby, due to be born in 3 weeks. What kind of life would that child have? Born in a failing ship, traveling through the void toward a destination they'd never reach? We need more information, he said finally. Hana, can you access the station's full database? I can try. Nari and Hyun have been working on it. The system is old, but it's designed to interface with any intelligence. Give me 6 hours. 6 hours later, Hana called an emergency meeting. Her face on the screen looked pale and shocked. I got into the full archive, she said. All 47 species that came here before us. I know what happened to them. She displayed the data. Species after species, all following the same pattern. Dying homeworlds, mysterious coordinates, arrival at the station. 23 species chose preservation. They're still in those pods, frozen forever. Their civilizations reduced to museum displays. 24 species chose the coordinates to the habitable world. What happened to them? Daewon asked. Hana's hands shook as she pulled up the next set of files. 15 of them made it to the planet. 9 died on the journey. Their ships weren't strong enough. Of the 15 that arrived, 12 established colonies, and the other 3 destroyed within weeks of landing. The records don't say by what. What about the 12 that survived? Hana was quiet for a long moment. They lasted between 5 months and 73 years. Then the records end. No more transmissions. No more data. Just silence. The council sat in stunned quiet. 73 years, Nari said softly. That's not nothing. That's 3 generations. That's a chance. It's also a death sentence, Taesung responded. We just don't know when the sentence will be carried out. Daewon stood and walked to the window. Outside, the alien station rotated slowly, its ancient lights pulsing like a heartbeat. What kills them? What's waiting on that planet? The records don't say, Hana answered. The preservers don't seem to care. They just watch. They collect data. They're studying us, studying how dying species behave when given hope. This is sick, one of the captains said. They're playing with us. No, Jiwon interjected. I don't think they're playing. I think they're genuinely trying to preserve life. They see themselves as saviors, but they don't understand that being alive means more than just existing. It means having a future, having choice, having dignity. Minho entered the chamber suddenly without permission. Security moved to stop him, but Daewon waved them off. My wife just gave birth, Minho said breathlessly. 3 weeks early. The baby, she's not normal. Jiwon was already moving toward the door. What do you mean? Come see. They rushed to the medical bay. Soyeon lay exhausted on the bed, holding a tiny infant. The baby looked healthy, normal in every way except one. Her eyes. They were open and focused, tracking movement with an intelligence that newborns should not possess. Jiwon scanned the infant with her medical equipment. Impossible. Her brain activity is off the charts. Neural connections are forming at 10 times normal rate. Is she okay? Soyeon asked weakly. I don't know, Jiwon admitted. She's developing faster than any human child should. Born in zero gravity, exposed to cosmic radiation even through our shielding. She's adapting. The baby made a sound, not crying, but something like curiosity. This is what's happening to us, Hana said quietly. We're changing. The children especially. Space is rewriting our biology. Daewon looked at the infant and saw humanity's future. Changed, adapted. No longer quite the same species that left Earth. That night, he made his decision. He called the council together one final time. We accept the preserver's offer. We take the coordinates to the habitable world. Commander, Taesung protested. We have no choice, Daewon said firmly. Our ships are failing. Our bodies are changing. We're dying slowly out here. At least the planet gives us a chance. Even if it's only 73 years, that's 73 years of solid ground beneath our feet. Of air we don't have to recycle. Of children who might grow up normal. The children will never be normal again, Jiwon said sadly. That baby proves it. Then we adapt, Daewon said. We've always adapted. That's what makes us human. Not our biology, but our will to survive. The vote was close. 4 captains agreed. 3 refused. But Daewon had the final authority. The decision was made. The next morning, a delegation boarded the station. They entered the central hub where the preserver's computer waited. Daewon stood before the pedestal and spoke clearly. We choose the coordinates. We choose to continue. The hologram flickered. Choice accepted, payment required. New text appeared explaining the cost. The preservers needed samples. Complete genetic data, full cultural database, recordings of human language, art, history, everything, and living tissue samples from volunteers. How many volunteers? Jiwon asked. Minimum, 100 specimens. Optimal, 500 specimens. Minho stepped forward. Take my daughter. She's already different, already changed by space. If anyone represents what humanity is becoming, it's her. Soyeon clutched the baby tighter but then slowly nodded. If it saves everyone else, others volunteered. Scientists wanting to contribute to humanity's archive. Elderly people who wouldn't survive the journey anyway. Parents offering themselves to spare their children. Within a week, 500 people had given tissue samples. The station's systems processed everything, adding humanity to its vast library of dying species. Then the coordinates came. A location 3 years away. A red dwarf star with 3 planets. The fleet prepared to depart. As they left, Daewon looked back at the station one final time. Somewhere inside, in a database beyond human understanding, humanity's essence was preserved. If they failed on the planet ahead, at least something would remain. The Ark fleet engaged their engines and jumped to faster-than-light travel, following their new path. Behind them, the preservation station dimmed its lights and returned to waiting. In 40 million years, it had collected 47 species. Now 48. It would wait for number 49. And 50. And beyond, time meant nothing to the preservers. Only the collection mattered. 3 years in the void changed everything. The Ark fleet traveled through darkness toward the red dwarf star, and with each passing month, the ships decayed further. Daewon walked through corridors that groaned under stress. Metal plates buckled. Seals leaked precious air. The fusion reactors that powered their journey burned hotter than designed, pushed beyond safe limits just to keep moving forward. But worse than the mechanical failures were the human ones. Food rations dropped to survival minimums. Each person received barely enough calories to function. Children cried from hunger that never quite went away. The hydroponic gardens produced less each cycle. As the artificial sun lamps dimmed and failed, engineers cannibalized parts from non-essential systems just to keep life support running. Captain Tae-sung's security forces grew more aggressive. They enforced rationing with harsh penalties. Anyone caught hoarding food faced imprisonment. Anyone caught stealing faced worse. Tae-sung himself became harder, colder. Daewon barely recognized the friend he once knew. "We need order," Tae-sung said during one of their increasingly tense meetings. "Without discipline, we'll tear ourselves apart before we reach the planet." "Your people are beating civilians," Daewon countered. "I've seen the medical reports. They were stealing food from children. They were starving." Tae-sung leaned forward. "We're all starving, Commander." "That's not an excuse." The argument ended with no resolution. It always did now. The fleet was fracturing along lines of survival. Those who had resources versus those who didn't. Those who followed rules versus those who broke them to live one more day. Dr. Ji-won spent her days in the medical bay, treating the endless parade of sick and injured. Malnutrition caused wounds to heal slowly. Vitamin deficiencies led to diseases humans had conquered centuries ago, and the children born in space continued to develop abnormally. She examined Minho and Soyeon's daughter, now 3 years old. The girl they named Yuna was frighteningly intelligent. She spoke in complete sentences at 8 months. She read at 18 months. By age 2, she was solving mathematical problems that challenged adults, but she never cried, never laughed. She watched the world with calculating eyes that seemed too old for her small face. "Is she happy?" Soyeon asked during one examination. Ji-won didn't know how to answer. "She's healthy. Her brain development is extraordinary." "That's not what I asked." Ji-won met Soyeon's eyes. "I don't think she experiences emotions the way we do. None of the spaceborne children do. They're evolving past that, adapting to an environment where emotional responses are a liability." Soyeon touched her daughter's hair gently. Yuna tolerated the touch but didn't respond to it. "She's becoming something else, isn't she? Not human anymore." "Still human," Ji-won said softly. "Just different." But privately she worried. There were 47 spaceborne children now. All showed the same patterns. Enhanced intelligence. Decreased empathy. They formed their own social groups, communicating in ways adults couldn't quite follow. Sometimes Ji-won caught them staring at the older generation with expressions that looked almost like pity. Hana spent her time fighting a losing battle against entropy. The ships were dying faster than she could repair them. Arc 7 lost its main reactor in month 19. They had to evacuate 5,000 people to the other ships, cramming them into spaces not designed for such numbers. Arc 3's hull developed a massive crack in month 27. They sealed it with emergency foam that everyone knew wouldn't last. She worked 18-hour days, running on stimulants and determination. Her father found her asleep at her workstation one night, her face pressed against a tablet displaying failure reports. "You need rest," Daewon said gently, shaking her awake. Hana blinked, disoriented. "The ships, I need to. There's so much to fix." "You can't fix everything, I have to try." She pulled up new data showing him the deterioration rates. "The ships are changing, Father. Not just breaking down, changing." Daewon studied the reports. She was right. The hull materials were restructuring at a molecular level. Patterns formed in the metal that matched nothing in human engineering. They looked organic, almost like cells dividing. "The technology the preservers gave us," Hana continued. "The quantum processors, the enhanced scanners. They're rewriting our ships, making them into something else. Something better or worse? I don't know. But we're not flying human vessels anymore. We're flying hybrids. Part machine, part something alien." Daewon felt a chill. Everything was changing. The ships. The children. Even the adults were different now, hardened by years of deprivation and fear. The people who would arrive at the planet would barely resemble the ones who left Earth. In month 31, they detected riots on Arc 4. Taesung's own ship. People stormed the food storage facilities, overwhelming security. 3 people died in the chaos. Taesung restored order by sealing off entire sections and cutting their air supply until the rioters surrendered. The execution of the riot leaders happened the next day. Taesung broadcasted it to all 7 ships as a warning. Daewon watched in horror as his old friend carried out justice with cold efficiency. "He's becoming a tyrant," Jiwon said quietly beside him. "He's keeping us alive," Daewon replied, though the words tasted like ash. The fleet's population dropped, not just from violence but from quiet despair. People walked into airlocks and opened them. Others stopped eating, choosing a faster death than slow starvation. The suicide rate climbed despite Jiwon's best efforts. By month 34, they had lost 2,000 people. 8% of the population gone. Then, in month 36, sensors detected the star system ahead. A red dwarf smaller and dimmer than Earth's sun. 3 planets orbited it. The middle planet showed green and blue on their scanners. Atmosphere, water, life. Hope surged through the fleet like electricity. People who had given up found reason to continue. Rations seemed less important when a world of resources waited just ahead. Even the children showed interest. Their calculating eyes focused on the approaching planet. 1 month until arrival, Hana reported on the fleet-wide broadcast. Her voice carried across all 7 ships. 1 month until we have solid ground again. Celebration erupted. People hugged. Some cried. The first real joy in 3 years spread through the corridors. Only Daewon remained cautious. He remembered the preservers' records. 12 species had reached this planet. 12 had built colonies, and all 12 had eventually gone silent. He called Taesung, Jiwon, and Nari to his quarters for a private meeting. "We need to be prepared," Daewon said. "The planet killed everyone who came before us." "Maybe they weren't prepared," Nari suggested. "Maybe they made mistakes we can avoid. Or maybe something waits there that we can't avoid," Taesung said grimly. "Something that hunts colonists." Jiwon pulled up the medical data on the spaceborne children. "I have a theory. Every species that came before us was normal, unchanged. But our children, they're different, evolved, enhanced. Maybe that gives us an advantage the others didn't have." "You want to use children as an advantage?" Daewon asked. "I'm saying they might be our only advantage. They think differently, process information faster. They're not bound by the emotional limitations that got other species killed." Daewon looked at the planet growing larger on the view screen. Beautiful and terrible, promising and threatening. We'll find out soon enough. The final month passed in tense preparation. Every weapon was checked. Every supply inventoried. Landing zone selected. Teams organized. Taesung drilled security forces in combat scenarios. Nari prepared the shuttle fleet. Jiwon stockpiled medical supplies, and the children watched everything with their strange, knowing eyes. Hyuna asked her mother a question one night that made Soyeon's blood run cold. "Why are the adults afraid?" "Because we don't know what's down there, sweetness." "I know," Hyuna said simply. "The planet is alive. It's been waiting for us. It's hungry." Soyeon stared at her daughter. "How could you possibly know that?" Hyuna tilted her head, processing the question with mechanical precision. All the children know. We can feel it calling. It wants to test us, to see if we're worthy. Worthy of what? But Yuna had already lost interest in the conversation. Returning to the tablet she used to communicate with the other spaceborne children in their private network. Soyeon reported the conversation to Jiwon, who reported it to Daewon. None of them knew what to make of it. Children's imagination or genuine perception? Had the changes in their brains given them abilities adults didn't possess? On the final day of the journey, the fleet entered orbit around the planet. It was beautiful. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds drifting across a sky that looked almost like home. Scans detected ruins scattered across the surface. Cities built by the species who came before, now overgrown and abandoned. Some were recent, maybe only decades old. Others were ancient, crumbling into dust. It's like a graveyard, Hana whispered. Every failed colony left their bones behind. Daewon gave the order. Prepare for landing. All 7 ships. We go down together. The Ark fleet descended through the atmosphere, engines screaming. 7 massive vessels dropping through clouds toward a world that had killed everyone. The landing was perfect. Too perfect. All 7 ships touched down on a wide plateau surrounded by forests of alien trees. The air was breathable, rich with oxygen. The temperature was comfortable. Water flowed in nearby rivers. After years in the cold metal coffins of space, stepping onto solid ground felt like a dream. Daewon stood outside Ark 1, feeling real gravity for the first time in 4 years. His knees almost buckled. Around him people laughed and cried, touching grass and dirt with trembling hands. Children who had been born in space fell over repeatedly, unused to weight pulling at their bodies. Only Yuna and the other spaceborne children stood steady, adapting instantly to the change. It's beautiful, Hana said beside her father, breathing deeply. The air tasted sweet, almost like honey. Captain Tae-sung approached, his face cautious despite the celebration around them. Too beautiful. Where are the dangers? Where are the threats that killed the others? Maybe we're lucky, Nari suggested hopefully. She was organizing the initial survey teams. Maybe those species made mistakes we won't repeat. Over the following weeks, the settlement grew rapidly. People constructed buildings using materials from the ships and resources from the planet. Farms were planted, water systems established, power generators installed. The population that had suffered for so long in space finally began to thrive. The ruins of previous colonies stood nearby, silent reminders of failure. Nari led expeditions to investigate them. Each ruin told the same story. Species arrived. They built. They prospered for months or years. Then something ended them. The ruins showed signs of violence, structures smashed and burned. But no bodies remained. Nothing to indicate what had attacked. It's like they vanished, Nari reported to the council. Buildings destroyed but no remains. No weapons. No clues about what happened. Jiwon studied the medical data from the colonists. Everyone was healthier than they had been in years. Good food, fresh air, natural sunlight from the red dwarf above. Even the psychological assessments showed improvement. Depression rates dropped. Hope returned. This planet is healing us, she told Daewon. Maybe it's not as dangerous as we thought. But Daewon couldn't shake his unease. He walked the perimeter every night, watching the dark forests beyond the settlement. Something felt wrong, like they were being watched, studied. 2 years passed peacefully. The population grew to 62,000 as births outpaced deaths for the first time since leaving Earth. Children born on the planet developed normally, not like the strange spaceborne ones. Farms produced abundant crops. Technology from the preserver station helped them build faster and better than should have been possible. Minho and Soyeon had a second child, a son they named Daeho. Unlike his sister Yuna, he laughed and played like a normal child. The contrast between the 2 siblings was stark. Daeho was warm and emotional. Yuna remained cold and analytical, now 5 years old but thinking like an adult. Tae-sung relaxed his strict security measures. With resources plentiful, there was less need for harsh discipline. People forgave the brutality of the journey. Understanding it had been necessary for survival. The settlements expanded. New towns built across the plateau and into the valleys beyond. Then, on the 2nd anniversary of their landing, the ground began to shake. Daewon was in his office when the first tremor hit. Books fell from shelves. Coffee spilled across his desk. He ran outside as alarms blared across the settlement. "Earthquake," Hannah shouted, her instruments beeping frantically. No, multiple earthquakes. All across the planet. Happening simultaneously. That was impossible. Natural earthquakes didn't synchronize globally. This was something else. The shaking continued for 3 minutes, then stopped abruptly. Damage was minimal. A few broken windows. Some collapsed storage sheds. Nothing serious. People emerged from shelters, shaken but unharmed. Nari's voice came over the radio, panicked. "Commander, you need to see this. The Southern Valley. Now." Daiwan, Taesung, and Jiwan flew to the Southern Valley in a shuttle. What they found made their blood freeze. A massive crack had opened in the earth, easily a kilometer wide. It stretched as far as they could see in both directions. And from the crack something was emerging. Creatures. Huge biomechanical things that looked like nothing in nature. They had metal skeletons covered in living tissue. Multiple limbs ending in tools and weapons. Sensors that tracked movement with inhuman precision. They climbed from the crack slowly, deliberately, like soldiers rising from trenches. "What are those?" Jiwan whispered. Yuna's voice came through on Soyeon's radio. The child had somehow accessed the communication channel. "The planet's immune system. We grew too large. We triggered it." More cracks opened across the planet. More creatures emerged. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They moved toward the human settlements with terrible purpose. Taesung mobilized security forces immediately. Every able person was armed. Defensive positions established. But when the creatures attacked, human weapons proved nearly useless. The biomechanical horrors adapted in real time. Bullets that worked once failed the second time. Explosives that destroyed one creature did nothing to the next. It was like the planet was learning from each encounter, evolving defenses against human tactics. They're connected, Hannah realized, monitoring the battle from the command center. Every creature shares information instantly. They're not individuals. They're extensions of something larger. Settlements fell one by one. The Southern Valley colony, 2,000 people, wiped out in hours. The eastern farms, 3,000 more, destroyed by dawn. The creatures didn't kill everyone. Some people they simply took, dragging them into the cracks that led deep underground. Daewon watched his dream of survival collapse. They had made the same mistake as every species before them. They had thought the planet was a gift. In truth, it was a test. A trial that humanity was failing. "Pull everyone back to the main settlement," he ordered. "Fortify the Ark ships. We make our stand there." The retreat was chaos. Families ran through forests as creatures pursued them. Shuttles evacuated distant colonies under fire. Taesung's forces fought desperate rearguard actions, buying time with their lives. Minho died protecting his family, torn apart by creatures while Soyeon escaped with their children. His last words over the radio were instructions for where they should run. By nightfall, 47,000 people had made it to the main settlement. 15,000 were dead or missing. The creatures surrounded them but didn't attack. They waited in the darkness beyond the lights, patient and watching. In the command center, Daewon faced the council. Everyone looked exhausted and terrified. "We're trapped. We can't fight them. We can't run. What do we do?" Jiwon had been studying the spaceborne children. They alone seemed calm during the crisis. The children. They say they can feel the planet. Communicate with it somehow. The mutations we thought were problems might be our only solution. Yuna entered the room, small and calm. Behind her, 46 other spaceborne children stood in perfect formation. Their eyes glowed slightly in the dim light, reflecting something inhuman. "We can talk to it," Yuna said in her flat, emotionless voice. "The planetary consciousness. It's testing us, trying to understand if we're worthy." "Worthy of what?" Daewon asked. "Of integration. Of becoming part of its ecosystem. Every species before you tried to conquer the planet. That's why they died. You must become partners with it instead." Taesung stepped forward angrily. "I won't let you use children as negotiators with some alien intelligence." "You don't have a choice," Yuna replied simply. "Adults can't hear the planet. Your brains aren't adapted, we are. We were changed by space specifically for this purpose." Jiwon realized the horrible truth. The preservers, they knew. The mutations weren't accidents. They were preparing us. Preparing the next generation to interface with this world. The children walked toward the perimeter. Security tried to stop them, but Daewon waved them back. Let them go. 47 space-born children walked into the darkness where the creatures waited. The biomechanical horrors approached them but didn't attack. Instead, they surrounded the children, forming a circle. Yuna reached out and touched one of the creatures. Her eyes rolled back. Her body went rigid. The other children did the same, each connecting with a different creature. Inside the command center, monitors showed bio-readings going wild. The children's brain activity spiked to impossible levels. Neural connections formed and broke and reformed in patterns no human had ever shown. They're linking with the planetary network, Hana said in awe. Complete mental integration. For 3 hours, nothing happened. The creatures stood frozen. The children remained connected. The adults waited, terrified and helpless. Then Yuna disconnected and walked back to the settlement. The other children followed. Their eyes no longer glowed. They looked tired but satisfied. The planet has decided, Yuna announced to everyone. You may stay. But there is a price. What price? Daewon asked, though he feared the answer. The older generation must give up individual consciousness. Upload your minds to the planetary. 3 days felt like 3 minutes. The settlement divided into factions immediately. Some people refused to accept the planet's terms, demanding they fight to the death rather than surrender their minds. Others saw no choice at all. Survival meant everything, even if survival required transformation beyond recognition. Taesung led the resistance faction. He stood before crowds, his voice carrying across the settlement. We didn't travel across the stars to become slaves to some alien consciousness. We are human. That means something. That's worth dying for. But Jiwon countered with cold logic. Being human means adapting, surviving. Our ancestors climbed down from trees and learned to walk upright. They discovered fire and language and tools. Each change made us less like what came before, but more capable of surviving. This is just another adaptation. This isn't adaptation, Taesung argued. This is extinction with a different name. If we upload our minds, we stop being us. We become part of something else. Daewon listened to both sides but made no public statement. He spent the 3 days walking through the settlement, talking to people individually. A farmer who had lost her husband to the creatures. A teacher worried about his students' future. An engineer who built homes that might stand empty forever. Everyone had opinions. Everyone had fears. On the second night, Hana found her father sitting alone outside the command center staring at the stars. The Ark ship stood nearby, dark and silent, monuments to the journey they had survived. What are you thinking? She asked, sitting beside him. Daewon was quiet for a long time. I'm thinking about your mother. She died in the first year after the sun started dimming. Cancer, fast and brutal. I always wondered if I made the right choice leaving Earth without her. Carrying on without her. She would have wanted you to survive. Would she want this? Would she want me to dissolve into some alien network? Hana took her father's hand. I don't know, but I know she'd want humanity to continue, even if it looks different than we expected. You won't remember me, Daewon said softly. Once I upload, I'll be scattered across millions of minds. There won't be a Commander Daewon anymore, just fragments of who I was. I'll remember, Hana promised. I'll tell my children about you. About the man who saved humanity by making the hardest choice. Did I save humanity or kill it? Neither of them had an answer. Yuna visited Jiwon in the medical bay on the final day. The child looked older somehow, as if the connection with the planetary mind had aged her in ways invisible to normal eyes. You need to understand what will happen, Yuna said. The adults who upload won't die. Death is ending. This is transformation. Your consciousness will expand. You'll feel the entire planet, every tree, every river, every creature. You'll be part of something vast. Will I still be me? Jiwon asked. You'll be you and more. Individual thoughts become part of a greater whole. Imagine hearing a symphony but being every instrument at once. That sounds terrifying. It sounds beautiful, Yuna corrected, but you have to choose it. The planet won't force anyone. Those who refuse will be allowed to live out their natural lives. But they can't have children. They can't expand. They'll be the last of their kind. Jiwon understood the cruelty of the choice. Accept transformation or accept extinction. There was no third option. Minho's funeral happened on the morning of the third day. Soyeon stood with her 2 children, Yuna holding her hand and baby Daeho in her arms. They buried him in the alien soil under a red sun that wasn't Earth's sun. Your father was brave. Soyan told Yuna. He died so we could live. He died because he was still fully human, Yuna replied without emotion. Humans are fragile. The planet broke him easily. I won't be fragile. None of the children will be. Soyan looked at her daughter and saw a stranger, the girl who came from her body but no longer felt like hers. Do you love me? She asked suddenly. Do you feel anything when you look at me? Yuna considered the question with mechanical precision. I understand you are my mother. I recognize the biological bond. I value your existence because you created me. Is that love? I don't know. I don't think I process emotions the way you do. It was the most honest answer Yuna had ever given, and it broke Soyan's heart. That evening, everyone gathered in the central plaza. The creatures surrounded the settlement, waiting patiently. Above, the stars began to appear as the red sun set. 3 days had passed. The decision time arrived. Daewon stood on a platform where everyone could see him. His voice carried across the silent crowd. I won't tell you what to choose. This decision is too personal, too important for me to make for you. But I will tell you what I'm choosing. He paused, looking at the faces before him. People who had followed him across the stars. People who had trusted him with their lives. I choose transformation. I choose to upload. Not because I want to, but because I believe in humanity's future, and that future belongs to the children, the ones adapted to survive in this new world. My generation, we're the bridge. We got them here. Now we have to let them continue without us. Tae-sung stepped forward from the crowd. I disagree with you, Commander. I think we should fight. I know you do, old friend. But, Tae-sung continued, his voice cracking slightly, I also know you're probably right. You usually are. He looked around at the people. I'll upload too. If my consciousness can help protect the next generation, even as part of some alien network, then that's what I'll do. One by one, people stepped forward to declare their choice. Most chose transformation. Some refused, opting to live out their remaining years as unchanged humans. It was about 70% in favor of uploading. The process began at midnight. The creatures approached the volunteers gently, far more carefully than when they had attacked. Each person was led to a different creature. Daewon walked forward with steady steps, though his heart hammered in his chest. Hana ran to him one last time. Father, I love you. I love you too, daughter. Take care of them. Take care of humanity, whatever it becomes. The creature extended something like a limb, covered in both metal and organic tissue. Daewon took it. The connection was immediate, pain first. Overwhelming, absolute pain as his neural pathways were mapped and copied and uploaded. Every memory, every thought, every dream pulled from his skull and transmitted into the planetary network. Daewon screamed but couldn't stop the process. Then the pain ended, and expansion began. Suddenly he could feel everything. The roots of trees drinking water miles away. The creatures moving through underground tunnels. The children's bright minds connected to the network. Other consciousnesses, thousands of them. The uploaded minds of his people joining the vast intelligence of the planet. Daewon's individual identity began to dissolve. He was himself, but also the farmer next to him. The engineer down the line. Captain Tae-sung uploading across the plaza. All of them becoming threads in a tapestry too large to comprehend. It was beautiful and terrible at once. His last distinct thought before full integration was of Earth, the blue planet they had abandoned. He wondered if it still existed, frozen and dead in space, or if it had recovered somehow, life finding a way without humanity. Then Commander Daewon ceased to exist as an individual. His consciousness scattered across the planetary network, becoming part of something ancient and vast. The human colonists who uploaded joined with alien intelligences from 47 previous species. All of them failures. All of them transformed. All of them now guardians of the world that had tested and changed them. By dawn, 33,000 humans had uploaded. Their bodies dissolved into the soil, returned to base elements, but their minds remained woven into the planet's consciousness. The 14,000 who refused stood in the plaza, watching the sun rise. They were the last unchanged humans in the universe. Their children would be the spaceborne, the adapted ones. And their children's children would be something entirely new. Yuna looked at her mother with eyes that now glowed faintly even in daylight. We should begin building. The planet has given us instructions, new cities that work with the ecosystem instead of against it, technology that blends organic and mechanical. We have much to do. Soyan held baby Deho close. Her son cooed happily, still too young to understand what had happened. Will you take care of us? The ones who didn't upload? Yes, Yuna said. The planetary consciousness, which includes parts of your friends and family, will protect you. You'll live comfortable lives, but you won't be part of what comes next. You're living history now, the last pure humans. In the forest beyond the settlement, new structures began to grow, buildings that were half architecture, half living organisms. The space-born children worked alongside the biomechanical creatures, no longer enemies but partners. They built a civilization unlike anything humanity had ever created. The Ark ship stood empty on the plateau, slowly being reclaimed by nature. Vines grew up their hulls. Trees sprouted from cracks in their armor. In 100 years they would be invisible, buried under forests, the only remaining evidence that humans had once traveled the stars in ships of metal and hope.